Right, okay, so we are live. Hi everyone, how are you all doing? I hope that you are all well. My name is Jacqueline Francis and welcome to Stop Sweeping Under the Carpet. So I have my special guest with me today, Maxine Wynter. So the topic we're going to be talking about is Let's Talk Racism. So before we jump onto that, just introduce yourself for us, Maxine.
Right, yeah, as it says on the screen there, I'm Maxine Wynter. I'm a stress relief speaker, coach, and consultant. I've got a background in social work, and I've worked in many different sectors over the past 14 years in health and social care.
Right, great. Thank you very much for that. So we're just going to jump on and get straight to it, really. So
Yeah.
I was just going through the posts on my Facebook page and you popped up. And obviously what's going on, with the death of George Floyd has exacerbated this, well, what was already there, actually, racism, but you're really talking about it. So I saw it wasn't a rant. It was just, because it was very long, but you were just saying what experiences you have had with racism, which apparently started from a very young age. So can you share with us, what age, first and foremost, did it start?
The first memory that I have, I was 5 years old, of being noted or of being different. I think when you're like a small child, you don't recognize difference.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the first time where I recognized that I was different to the people that were in my environment and my surroundings. So I was raised in rural, in a town basically, and then we moved from a town to sort of rural countryside. And we went into a shop, myself and my mum. And still today, my mum does live in that village, but it's still the only black family within that village. So you can see that how in like so many years, obviously things haven't necessarily moved forward in some areas in terms of like the demographic of people that live there. So we moved there and we went to the local shop. So stereotypical British village, that has like a church, a pub, a shop, a village hall, a park.
Wow.
And one bus stop. It's very much the school, so it's very much, typical village. And we went to our local shop and I went to go and get some sweets. I was 5 years old at this time. And I don't know with it, but like back in the days, you get like the sort of the sweets behind the counter. So you'd have to want one to get the sweets.
Yeah.
So I was asking for some penny sweets and I wasn't being responded to. And I thought maybe it's, maybe like the permission of my mum, because obviously I was a small child, 5 years old. So I kind of just stood there waiting, and then someone else came along and got served and then left the shop. So then mum was round the corner, because the shops are sort of in an L shape, and she came out and I said, "Mum, can I have some sweets, please?" She went, "Yeah, sure, of course. Like, you're allowed 10 penny sweets."
Yeah.
So I went to ask for them again, and again, nothing, like was being completely ignored. And so then mum came to the counter and went to purchase something, and again, being completely ignored. So mum asked her, "Are you going to serve us?" And she just meekly just went, "No, we're not going to serve you." And she's like, "Why?" "No, we don't serve you here. We're not serving you here." And I just remember going, "Right, that's it. We're never going into that shop again."
Yeah.
That's because
how did you feel? As a young child, yes, we're not going into that shop again, but what was that feeling? What did it feel like?
I felt like I didn't belong. So that had a really great impact on my identity and who I am.
Even at that young age, even at that age,
yeah. Because then I started to recognise the only people that looked like me were like my cousins, you know. So the only time that I then saw people that looked similar to me was my cousins, who happened to be mixed race. So when you're living in a place where you're not, so we would go to London, and from that moment I was like, Mum, when are we moving to London? Because I saw difference. I knew that there was difference, and I knew that I no one said anything that was controversial or whatever. So, and that's where, and that's also as well where I got my hair products from, where we got our food from, where you would hear that, you'd go to places like Brixton, and you would hear, the dancehall music and the bashment and the things that were connected to what I was hearing in my house. And I didn't have anything like that where I lived. So my environment didn't have anything that was connected to my Jamaican culture, my Jamaican heritage. All I had was my mum and what was in my house that connected, that had me know that I was black, in the sense of the blackness in me. Do you know what I mean? Outside, I could connect to the whiteness within me, but inside, it was only ever in my house that I could have that connection to my culture. And even with shopping and things like that, there wasn't anything that, or going to places or teachers or all of these things.
Did you travel from where you were to London to get your supplies?
Like
often
60 miles. So and obviously because my mum as well, she had a cafe, and so she did English Caribbean food. So she brought a lot of she had the supplies, and that was where I was like, this is a place where I feel like I belong more, or I'm seeing people like that look like me.
Right.
And I could identify with culture, and just even going to school, like no one looked like me at school.
I was about to say, so that was your experience as a 5-year-old in a sweet shop. Did that translate further into primary school as well? Was there any adverse behavior in the school system?
Yeah, so in school as well, I did go to quite a few primary schools for different reasons, but for learning needs really. But in one particular school that I went to, primary school, there was a teacher that would say things that was not appropriate in the class. About my race, and about who I was, and about who my mum was, and all these things. And I didn't feel comfortable about it. And luckily, we had a teacher, Mr. Kreiselmeyer. He was from America, Michigan, in America. So, being from like somewhere like Detroit, he would have seen diversity and different people. And luckily she was only a supply teacher. So that teacher got removed from the school. And that was quite difficult, because that's someone who's meant to be teaching you, who's discriminating you or picking you out because you're not the same as everybody else. And again, it's not very good to have people that you're meant to be looking up to, who you're meant to respect. And then it would also happen with some of the obviously with some of the pupils as well. So when I would go and play rounders, remember I went to go play rounders at one of the other villages. There would be this thing of, oh, look, there's that black girl or nigger or coon or things like that. And, you know, and those things did happen in my primary school age. It happened to me at secondary school as well.
Did you have a challenge?
I've got like pubic hair on my head and have chewing gum chucked in my hair.
Oh my God.
And things like that. They're the sort of things that happened to me when I was at secondary school.
Did you challenge any of those actions with your peers or even the teacher? Did you question why they were calling you that or behaving adversely towards you?
I think when you're the only person or one of very many, of a few, sorry, one of few, not many, within that environment. I mean, when I was at secondary school, I think I used the fact that, because at that stage I done like karate, so I would utilize the fact that I was doing karate and I probably hit them or something like that. And I remember I had like this umbrella, this big, you know, like them golf umbrellas. I'd take that to school, and then I'd be quite threatening because I felt that was the only way that I could kind of like defend myself. There was other people in the village as well that outside of school as well, so it wasn't necessarily in school, it was outside of school that was and you know, even when my cousin came and visited, they'd also then take it out on my cousin. He's darker complexion than me and my brother, and they would, you know, try and start fights, try and hit us with like knuckle dusters and
oh my goodness,
and things like that. And my uncle, he had to go to one of the parents' houses and kind of, and if you see my uncle, he's very tall, he's very big, and he's very like, you know, like, you don't want to mess with my uncle sort of thing. Like, you know, like, get your son to come out here and call me a nigger, you know. And they're like, you know, very, very scared. And but then he was like, you shouldn't be, you know, your son shouldn't be saying that to my son and my niece and nephew. Like, so there was
how did mom explain it to you? So, you know, as a child, I don't know if she did or not, for you to understand what was going on, if at all.
I think, like, so she would just say that I needed to kind of laugh at them, at what they would say, as a way of sort of like coping with it. Obviously, I could go back to her and talk to her about it, which I did do, because even in like, you know, having not karate lessons, in keyboard lessons, there was some abuse, racial abuse from the teacher, and then we tell our mum about it, and then our mum would have to sit, and she sat in the next room and then heard her and had to take us out.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So there was lots of things that we would have to kind of go back to our mum, and then our mum would have to like sort it out. And she always would say to us, it hurt her so much more when we was, you know, at the hands of it. More so than if it did when it may have happened to her. So yeah, she would just be like, look, she would just obviously try and reaffirm to us that, you know, that we're good enough as we are, that we're, you know, that, you know, you've got beautiful hair, you've got, you know, you're beautiful just as you are, you know, you're a bit of me, you're a bit of your dad, and you are who you are, you're my children. And, you know, and just to kind of like instill like confidence in us regardless. And I think that was what was really important, but also as well to just have understanding of, you know, like we'd listen to a lot of like Bob Marley and things like that, and she would make sure that we accessed, you know, going to places like when we would go to like places like Jamaica and things like that, understanding our history and what has been fought for so far, like the journey. And actually, you know, there's been so much that actually our ancestors have fought for in terms of, you know, having a sense of or coming, even though it's not equal, there's been a journey where there was much more inequalities in the past. So yeah, I think that was important.
So when you saw, I mean, we've had a couple of people jump on, but I'd like you to comment. Guys, please do leave a comment. If this probably something might resonate with you, or you may know somebody that may have experienced racism. So please do comment. And of course, if you also want to join me and share your experiences, please do DM me. So Maxine, when you saw, or the world saw, that image of George Floyd with the police officer on his neck saying that he can't breathe, what, if any, feelings did that raise up with you, knowing what you have been going through all of your life?
Well, to me, that could be my uncle, my cousin, my brother, a family member, my partner. That could have that represented someone that could be my family member. That and really, to every single person, every single mother, yeah, it doesn't matter whether it doesn't actually, but it is, I know, to every single mother that would have seen that, but anyone that's got any sense of humanity, that saw that or heard about it, it's inhumane, and it's an inequality and an injustice. And for me, I felt that it was almost like a secondary trauma for anyone that's been at the hand of racism. And whether that's been pulled up by the police, discriminated at work, discriminated on the street, any form of racism. And I suppose as well, at the time that it happened as well, in the midst of this pandemic, there's like a lot going on, and the fact that also as well, like people like Belly Majinda, who, you know, had inequalities in her work, and you know, and unfortunately died from COVID because there wasn't correct working arrangements for her. And you know, so there was a lot of things that were going on anyway. And I think it was just like this massive blow. But I think it also highlighted all the other things that have happened in injustice, you know, within the sort of the institutionalized from police and from other organizations, whether that's within work settings and things like that. So there, it just opened up really
really, isn't it?
Of different things.
And can I just quickly ask, because okay, the demonstrations and the protests happened during the pandemic, so we found ourselves in this juxtaposition where we're supposed to be staying in because of COVID, but people wanted to go out and demonstrate. Did you go out and protest at all?
No, I didn't.
Right.
I thought about it. You know, I thought about it, but there's different ways to be a revolutionary. Right? And I work within this health and social care setting, so I have to be mindful of who I work with and the work that I do. And there's other ways that I have been sort of trying to put a dent, as it were, or create a change in respect of racism, especially within the workplace. My focus is about, you know, mental health and well-being and, you know, stress relief within the workplace. So this is also something that, because that's something that I push anyway, it's also something that I think will actually, you know, equality within the workplace is actually very important.
Yeah,
and I know that the statistics in the UK is really shocking in terms of opportunities, especially directorship roles, and particular roles, they're not accessible for black people, mixed race people, Asian people, in comparison to white counterparts. So this is the things that I've been looking to sort of create a change. I have supported other people that I don't think, or you know, if that is what people felt at the time that they needed to do, to stand up for their rights by protesting, and they did it in a peaceful manner, and they did it with the intention of voicing their pains, their hurts, and to create a sustained change, then it's not because I disagreed with it, it's that I felt that I could tackle it in a different way.
I mean, I had Faye on the other day, but before I just mentioned Faye, I just want to say thank you to Hillary Gooden, all the way from Chicago, USA, who says hello. The Faye the other day, and you know, just as you've just said, there are other ways. As much as you would have probably wanted to go out and demonstrate, there are other ways in which you can show how you feel about what's actually going on. You know, I asked my children if they have been affected by racism, if they've been profiled or anything like that, because I personally haven't experienced any racism, but I had that feeling of being profiled when you go into a store or a shop, or you know, and you're looking around, and all of a sudden you might see a security guard, you know, behind you or following you, and you know, he wasn't there at that time. But my son said, "Yeah, Mum, of course," and he just said, you know, he just said it so matter of factly. And I said, "Well, what were how did it happen to you?" And he was saying, "Well, you know, since he bought his car, he drives a Mercedes, so he was pulled over by the police, and the police were saying, well, there's a lot of rental cars being stolen in the area, so we're just checking whatever, blah, blah." And of course, he knew that, you know, that wasn't the case. And then, you know, my daughter was saying,
"Let's come on."
Yeah, exactly. And you know, there's a lot of black men, or you know, brown men or whatever, who are constantly, it's a way of life. They're just so used to it. And why should they have to be used to it? I mean, I don't know whether you have been stopped by the police.
I have.
You have? Okay. So do you want to say what happened there then?
I got pulled. Again, it wasn't in London or anything like that, but I got pulled in the town I was raised. It wasn't long after I started driving, actually, and they started talking to me. They took my name and all that details, and they said, "Right, that's it. We're going to find you. We know who your family is. We know your family name. We know who your family is." And yeah, and I do truly believe that, obviously, especially then, like when I first started driving, which was oh gosh, a little while ago now. There wasn't many families in the area that were black. So our family in this town, the town I was raised, is, you know, it's well known, if you know what I mean. So there was, I felt that if I had maybe been, if I'd maybe perhaps been white, that I might get away with it. Because it was just when the Don't Speak on the Phone came out. Because when I passed my driving test, you could speak on the phone.
Yeah.
So it was when that came out, and so they then pursued that, and I do think it was because they, you know, they knew of my family, and they knew that the family is a black family, and they just went,
Wow. I mean, it's just so sad, but it's a way of life. Do you know what I mean? And I thought, well, okay, well, my show is called Stop Sweeping It Under the Carpet, so why not, people come on and tell me things that, that they've had to sweep under the carpet, not that because they want to, because maybe they felt that they couldn't speak up about it.
Yeah.
I mean,
and I don't think that, I know that, for example, I'm not going to get pulled up by the police as much as someone that would be like that's dark complexion than I am, that's man, those sort of things. So like, I know that there would be a difference to with other people, depending on, and even in the work situation,
wow.
because of my accent, or because of like people with certain accents and things like that don't sound British, or names that don't sound British, they're going to be at the hand of more discrimination.
Yeah. But, I mean, you made a point on your post saying that racism doesn't just happen in the USA; it happens in the UK as well. And I think some people in the USA are quite surprised at that, because even when I spoke to another lady, I was interviewing her with regards to racism, and when she heard Faye's story, she was quite surprised that we have racism here. So I think it's also important.
Happens wherever there is a minority.
Yes.
So if you are in a Western country, whether that's America, whether that's the UK, whether that's Germany, I'm just putting out countries here.
Yes.
There will be, if Black people or Asian people or mixed race people are the minority to white people, someone like my partner who's African, and he's Gambian and Ghanaian, and has lived there, hasn't experienced racism because he's with Black people. Do you see what I mean? So, but it will be a different story. If he was, do you see what I mean? So, I think that it's very much, and it wouldn't have been it again, I suppose, in terms of within the Black community there's colorism and things like that, and that's a completely different conversation to racism. But there is, and obviously with Asian community, there's like the caste system and things like that. So that's a completely different conversation in itself. However, don't be surprised. It's just different. And you've got to think that, where did things like, the British Empire came in and took over all these other countries? They are like the top people, like the system, is the top. We've come from a history of a system that will take over countries and rule and dictate other countries, and then obviously part of that, a part of the slave trade. So it's very much interconnected with what happens. It happens differently, I believe, in America. I think it's more in your face in America. However, it does happen here, and I think that it happens within the workplace. It happens, I think, if you're living more in rural areas and like in towns and things like that, where there's less of the demographic than someone like London. But then like with London, you have pockets of, as much as there's like this, there's a fluidness of diversity in terms of different races. You will go to like places like, if I went to places like Golders Green, you have lots of Jewish people there. If you go to certain other places in London, you know, that's where this, if you go to like Tower Hamlets and you're by like Bethnal Green, you're going to have a big massive Bengali community there.
Absolutely.
So you know, even in London, you will have areas whereby there is only a certain or a big population of a certain race. So as much as there is this perceived sense of diversity, actually, is there really that sort of mixing? I mean, okay, you know, I've been to America and things like that, and you know, in when I went to Florida, and I asked to be driven somewhere by someone who's white, to go to a place. We met someone on the plane. We met someone on the plane that was black, and they were like, "Oh yeah, this is our address." So then when we tried to connect and then said, "Oh yeah, can we go there?" They were like, "No."
Oh.
No, we can't. It's too dangerous.
Oh. Okay. Wow.
So you know, and it's so those sort of things. So maybe, I don't know, maybe that's why maybe in America it's like, because it's more in your face, blatant.
Yeah.
Then, you know, and places like South Africa, like when I went to South Africa, again, similar sort of thing, because it's, and I think it's more blatant in terms of, you know, when I was in Cape Town, you know, it was also about class and money. And basically, the more money you had, and majority of the time, the people that had more money were white, and they didn't want to go to a certain area because that's where they felt that their car would be stolen or whatever, and or you couldn't go out at night and things like that. So I think in some countries it's maybe a bit more blatant.
Absolutely. What do you think about okay, I asked my last guest, Dr. Corey Hicks, who's from America actually, and I asked him whether, you know, what's happening at the moment, is this a moment or is it a momentum? Is it because there are still demonstrations and protests going on in America? They've been out a week for 6 weeks now, something like that. But here in the UK, it's now, I mean, I personally haven't seen any demonstrations. Maybe there are pockets in different areas. But for us, I guess Sadiq Khan was saying, you know, as much as you want to protest, we still have a pandemic going on. You know, is it a moment for us and a momentum for America, or will it be a momentum? Are things going to change? Are we just being given lip service by some people? What do you think?
Very good question. I think that those that are very serious about wanting to create and make a change, they will stand for that. I know that I have been a part of, within the local authority that I currently work in, been looking to create change in terms of, you know, anti-racist policies, training, looking at unconscious bias.
But wouldn't those things already be in place in those organizations?
No.
So it doesn't come under the umbrella of inclusion and equality.
I think there needs to be more that's done. Okay. Yeah. when you are looking at, for example, if you was to look at how things have moved on for the LGBTQ community, in terms of sexuality and how that has been pushed, very much so for the last 15 years, that has nowhere near been on a level for race. And actually, having conversations about that. And I think it's also as well because we've been kind of in a way made to feel like we cannot do that. So I think that actually now is the time to address race in a proper way. And it has to be done within schools, and it has to be done within the workplace. You know, we need to be able to you know, and also as well society as well. If you go into a shop, like how many shops are you seeing whereby you would pick up a magazine and you would see a magazine and it has Black people and it has mixed race people, it has Asian people? Like how many magazines can you pick up?
And even on TV adverts, do you know what I mean? I mean,
yeah, like even with what happened, and they were doing the clap for the NHS, and there was this post that went out, thank you for all the NHS workers. It was all white people. Now tell me, okay, when someone went to the hospital, okay, or to their doctors, and they was treated by a white British practitioner, nurse, or doctor, right? Now, I know the last time I went to hospital, I was treated by someone who was, I think, from the Philippines. Yeah. So literally, you know, and also in health and social care, it is what other than, you know, there's like 18% of Black people that work in health and social care, and I believe it's 9% that mixed race. So that's 27% of, you know, of the population. I'm not sure on the stats for Asian people, but look at how many people of this community that are actually supporting and helping this nation.
I mean, so, I think I don't mean to cut you, but I think I need to put this in there. I read an article the other day. I thought, was it an article I saw on TV where these Black nurses, doctors, physicians, they all work for the NHS, but they're Black, okay? And they're talking about recently now, since COVID, and, you know, they still have patients who are white saying that they don't want that Black person to look after them. Do you know what I mean? And it just reminded me back, you know, in my mum's days, 1960s, where, you know, the patients back then didn't want.
That still happens.
It still happens. Even in this COVID time, this pandemic, where you're trying to help, you know, people, they're still saying the same thing. They don't want that Black person to touch them. So, you know, we haven't even scratched the surface. We haven't moved forward, and there is a lot of work to be done.
Yeah. So that's also as well making sure, because obviously, like, so I raised the fact that it wasn't really mentioned within my organisation, and I sat and I waited and I wanted to see what happened initially, and nothing did. Okay. And I then raised that was a problem. Right. How could this be ignored? Like, yeah. And it's also as well about, you know, how not also about the staff that work there, but it's also about, especially in health and social care, it's also about those that are Black, that are Asian, that are any person of colour, basically, that is treated, by staff. What is it they understand about their ethnicity? What is it that they understand about their culture? What is it that, because there's certain things and that would be done in not full understanding of their culture, their religion, and actually going, okay, so what's going on here? What actually happens here? Oh, okay, so maybe they've responded that way, you know. So there needs to be a greater understanding of the people that we work with. So it's about that as well. So it's, you know, and seeing that, okay, so whereabouts, that the questions that I've been asking is, okay, so how many people do we have, how many people within the teams that we have open to us, how many of them are black, how many of them are Asian, how many of them are mixed race, basically how many of them are not white, and where is it that they live? Okay, do they live in an area that is more deprived economically? What jobs is it that they do? Are they carers? Are they going to be more exposed to what's going on at the moment? How can we put support in? What's happened? Have they got a better package, or maybe not as good of a package? And why is that? In terms of services and interventions and things like that. So these are the sort of things that I'm trying to make a change within my industry, basically. And I think that that's what needs to happen. I've been going to many different meetings about that, about how staff are treated, and also about how we also work with, you know, at times the most vulnerable people within society. So that's
so at management level, is there people of color in the hierarchy of your organization?
In the top corporate section, no.
Right. Okay.
So that's something that obviously we're having conversations about that. And that's the reason, I've been blatantly honest about that. That's the reason I never mentioned what was happening and what happened to George Floyd and what was happening within the community. And
so no one said anything at all? Are you saying no one said anything at all?
No, not until like 3 weeks after. It took me 3 weeks.
Because I mean that was a topic of conversation for the part, you know, since it happened. So
but as much as it might have been a topic, I don't know necessarily. Because, and I recognise this is that the only time I've talked to people about race is to other people that aren't white. It's only been since this has happened that I've had people that are white that have spoken to me about, and like, have you ever experienced, like asking me the question, like, have you ever experienced racism? And I'm like, yeah, like of course. Just everybody, hasn't everybody experienced?
Were they shocked?
Yeah.
And actually, on that note, the question some people are asking is it our duty as Black people to educate our white friends about racism? Is it our duty to do that as Black people?
I think that there needs to be a willingness and proactiveness from white people, because the reason is I can say, or you can say, or other Black people or Asian people, people of color basically, can talk about their experiences or try and educate from their perspective. But if they're not willing to listen and they're not willing to learn, then so there has to be a willingness to want to be able to actually, it's just like anything. If I don't want to learn something, then it's not going to go in.
Yeah, of course.
It's not going to actually process here. So there needs to be a willingness for that. But I do also think that there needs to be an onus institutionally within, you know, schools and within work settings, that actually, do you know what, if you have these thoughts, if you portray things in a way that's not anti-racist, then we don't want you to be a part of the organization. There has to be that clarity. I mean, obviously with children it's going to be a bit difficult. We can't say, oh, we kick you out of school, but it's all about, but they're also at that age where they're more susceptible to be able to take in information and make a difference for the future. And I mean, I know there's quite a lot of programs that do that in America, and it has been criticized, but in America. But I think that it's a good thing to look at, actually, okay, so what is it that I think? Because even, and I don't know whether anyone saw the program recently on Channel 4 with children. I think it was called something like the school that tried to end racism or something like that.
Right. Yeah, I saw that advertised. Yes, yeah.
Yeah. And it was a school in Streatham, I believe. Obviously, it's quite a mixed, diverse area, Streatham. So half the class was white and the other half of the class was a mixture of Black, Asian, mixed race pupils. So around year 7, so 11 or 12 years old. And so they did this test of unconscious bias, and there was 24 of them, and 18 of them had a unconscious bias towards white people.
Oh, wow.
Now, if you're living in a society that is predominantly white, then so this is something that should really be, yes, and then there was 2 of them that were pro an unconscious bias towards Black, and then the other 4 were neutral.
Right.
So by the end of the work and the things that they did, it ended up that actually that they all had a neutral bias.
Right.
There wasn't a bias for white people or for Black people, and it was quite interesting in terms of, like there was this girl who was mixed Asian and white, and she from a very young age identified that she didn't like the fact that she was different to her white friends. And then there was also, and even the conversations that they were having at 11 and 12 years old about race, how the people of color were talking about that, and how the white peoples were not, they couldn't, because they'd never spoken about it.
Exactly.
Never spoken about it or had to think about what does it mean for me to be white?
Yes.
What does it mean for me to be white? What does my sense of identity mean as well? Like, like I'm someone, and a lot of Black people, we have this big sense of identity and where we come from, and the food, and the and just all the aspects of the culture, the culture that we come from. When you have to hold on to that, especially in a society where it is predominantly a white society, you have to hold on to those things.
Absolutely, because Margaret just joined us. She was saying, well, hi ladies, and she was saying that she saw the program. I think I'd have to go back now, and was it on Channel 4? And have
Channel 4, yeah. I mean, and it was really interesting, and even with this race, there was a race, and they were asking these questions, like, so the questions like, have you or someone you've known ever been pulled by the police? Have you, or so there's all these questions, and basically everyone that wasn't white was at the back. And there's a saying of, you have to work 10 times harder to get what you want in life. Now, that is something that I was told and I was brought up with.
Yes.
And that's because all these things set you back. Yeah. And that is that, and this, and the boy right at the front, he was related to Robert Peel, some like famous person, in history. He was in the museum.
Okay.
He was a VA or something. He was in the museum, and he got really upset that his Black best friend was like all the way at the back, and he was all the way he got really upset about it, because he was like, oh my goodness. And that highlights obviously like the white privilege. Yeah. and actually how much more difficult it is for anyone that's not white in this country and in other countries that, you know, where white people is the dominant race.
Yeah, and black are inferior.
Yeah, so it was a very, very interesting program, and I think that they're the sort of things that need to be put out in all schools and even in workplaces. I don't know how receptive the workplaces will be to it, because obviously, you know, adults are a bit more entrenched in their views and things like that. However,
I think they would have to see school to be doing something. You know what I mean? I don't see how they cannot do anything. I think the sheer fact that they, you know, they're supposed to have something in place for equality, inclusion, and that's sort of, for me, it was lip service. But I think in these times now, they have to have something in place. I mean, even today I was watching This Morning, and I know that Holly and Phil were going to be leaving, and then you had these two black presenters on This Morning, which is a prime time TV. So you know, you'll see more adverts with, you know, black people in there, because I used to sit there and think, but I use that product. How is it that I can't see anybody of my color using that product? I buy that product, you know. So things are changing, but the question is how long and how quickly will they change?
Well, I think, you know, it's not a thing that's going to be overnight. You've got to literally, there will be things that you'll be challenging.
Yeah.
The perception of what people have known in their lives. Yeah. For example, this is a little bit controversial, but for example, to a lot of white people, Winston Churchill, is a hero. He, you know, and however, but if you was to ask some you know, Indian people whether he's a hero, no.
Exactly.
He allowed 3 million people to die. That's not a hero, is it?
I was going to ask you about the statues. I mean, I know I asked my other guest about the statues, but you know, we've already been on for 50 minutes already. So, and you know, that's enough. I mean, I could go on. We can go on, but I just want to read a comment from Mohammed. Hold on. Oops. Oh, there. Hold on. Hold on. He said, I'm writing from Somalia. It's a nation without minorities, at least that is the prevailing wisdom. The prominent Somalian professor and advocate of US intervention in Somalia, Saeed Samata, commissioned to write about the subject, began, it should be said at the outset that Somalia does not have racial, ethnic and religious minorities to speak of, with the exception of clusters of Bantu communities who are not seriously involved in the present cataclysm. Somalia is essentially I don't know if I can get any more. Hold on. Well, I think I've lost. I think you can only get a certain amount of words in, but you know, he's talking about, you know, I mean, I know he was on the other day when I was talking to Dr. Corey Hicks, and he's saying that there's no racism or in Somalia, and then without minorities. So. I mean, I've been watching a lot of information around the world in terms of racism. Before, I wouldn't even consider, you know, watching what Donald Trump is doing, because I couldn't even stand the sound of his name, you know, but I find myself so intrigued about, you know, what's going on in America and so forth. And I think also trying to, you know, educating myself as well about what's going on, and us as Black people as a whole.
I think that everyone could benefit from, obviously, at the end of the day, we're here to grow, to elevate, to we have to remember first and foremostly that, you know, we are the human race, and we need to be treated on all Black people are asking for is to be treated on an equal platform. That is literally it, like, and also to be, you know, and to be acknowledged, for the things that we have done. Because history, the greatness of what Black people have contributed over the years has been written off, and discredited.
Absolutely.
So give us the value of what we contribute to society, how we make
great.
We was the ones that helped build this country. Absolutely. And made it great. And that
needs to be told, and this is the story, and this is why they're saying, this information needs to be in schools. This is what the children need to hear about. I mean, all I can remember, I'm not going to go on too much, but all I can remember from my history days is 1066 and the Battle of Hastings, and that's about it, really. And Henry VIII and his many wives. Nothing. But maybe if I had learned something about where I've come from, where our ancestors have come from, you'd have a better understanding. So I think. Yes, we were saying that, okay, we didn't go on demonstrations, but we can talk about it. We can implement change within the education system, within the workplace. Do you know what I mean? In different institutions to make change. We've got Kamara. Oh, Kamara. Hi, Kamara. Kamara's just joined us. He's saying hello. So I think we're going to end it there, actually. I can go on, and I'm sure you can go on as well, forever. About the subject matter, because it is huge, and it's not going to be. I personally don't think it's going to be a moment. It's going to be momentous.
I think we now just have to keep going. And I know it's it's a long walk to freedom, as Nelson Mandela say. But at the end of the day, I think that we've got a voice. We have a voice. We need to use that voice to be able, if we don't be the change, and that means all of us.
Lifetime.
Then things won't change. And that means that everyone needs to change.
Absolutely.
So yes. Absolutely. And those that are, we need to have, allies in this to make that change, because at the end of the day, they're the ones that are, effectively in more powerful positions across the board. I'm not trying to say there's not there is Black excellence, but that excellence needs to be shown.
Yeah, of course. Yes, definitely. Wow. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Maxine, for sharing your experiences and sharing your thoughts as to, where we go, in going forward, and also what you're doing in your own establishment to create this awareness and to educate those people where you work.
Yes. So next steps will be looking at sort of the policies and procedures. They're already putting in different trainings and things like that, so that they'll be rolled out and will be made mandatory for all of the staff that have to be a part of the organisation. So
right. Wow.
So that's about 3,000 employees. So
wow. Okay. Well done you. Well done you.
It wasn't just me, there was other people, but
I mean, you're part of the process. Do you know what I mean? You're doing something to make a difference.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. And even all down to things like, those that are first generation, what support they get to be able to understand the British culture, and also as well what support do, if you've got family members that are abroad, in terms of access to annual leave and being sort of blocked and things like that. So there's loads of different facets that, making it very clear, like don't touch your hair and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
That goes on in the workplace and different settings. So it's
I mean, I even wanted to touch on reparation, but as I said, I think we've run out of time here now. That'll have to be a conversation for another time, maybe with another guest or something. But
yes,
I want to
gosh,
thank.
that's
I know. I just want to thank all of those who joined us, Margaret and Hilary and Mohammed and Kamara, and I'm sure there's others that I can't quite see who's joined us and commented. So thank you so much, Maxine. Until next time, I'm sure we'll speak again soon.
Yeah, stay blessed. Thanks everyone for joining.
Okay, take care.
All right, bye.
Right, okay. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us. If you want to be on the show please, and share your experiences, then please do join me, Jacqueline Francis, just DM me to share your experience and how you feel about what's going on in terms of race at the moment, and are we going far enough? So take care. Bye.